On a crisp autumn afternoon, the bustling urban street of Maple Avenue was alive with the sounds of city life. Cars honked impatiently, pedestrians navigated crowded sidewalks, and the aroma of freshly baked bread from a nearby bakery mixed with the faint scent of fuel from passing vehicles. At the heart of the commotion was Benson's Diner, a modest establishment that had been a staple in the neighborhood for decades. Its faded sign read, "Homemade meals like Grandma's," a nostalgic promise that drew regulars and newcomers alike. Inside the diner, the clatter of dishes and the hum of conversation filled the air. Jack Benson, the diner's burly owner, was at his usual post behind the counter. Known for his booming voice and no-nonsense attitude, Jack was both respected and feared by his patrons and staff. His gruff demeanor often overshadowed any semblance of warmth, and his rigid approach to running the diner left little room for empathy. Across the street, a young boy named Ryan Carter was weaving his way through the crowd. At just 14 years old, Ryan carried himself with a quiet confidence and a maturity that belied his age. Raised by his single mother, Sarah, Ryan had learned the value of hard work and kindness from an early age. Sarah worked long hours as a nurse, often coming home exhausted, but her unwavering optimism had instilled in Ryan a deep sense of fairness and compassion. As Ryan approached the diner, he caught sight of an elderly couple standing near the entrance. They looked out of place amidst the bustling crowd, their simple, well-worn clothing contrasting sharply with the polished suits and dresses of others walking by. The man, Mr. Anderson, adjusted his battered hat nervously, while his wife, Mrs. Anderson, clutched her handbag tightly, her face lined with worry. Ryan paused, his curiosity piqued. The Andersons, he soon realized, were at the center of a heated exchange with Jack Benson. The scene unfolding before him would test the values his mother had instilled in him and set the stage for a life-altering decision. Ryan lingered near the diner's window, watching the interaction unfold. Mr. Anderson was fumbling through his pockets, his hands trembling as he turned out their contents. Mrs. Anderson clutched his arm, her voice soft but pleading. "Please, sir," she said, her tone desperate. "We must have dropped the money somewhere. It was just here. We can look for it if you'll give us a moment." Jack Benson, towering over the couple, crossed his arms and scowled. His booming voice carried through the diner, drawing the attention of nearby customers. "And I'll say it again. If you can't pay, you shouldn't eat here. This isn't a charity. It's a business." The Andersons shrank under his harsh words. Mrs. Anderson's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and Mr. Anderson's weathered face seemed to age further in that moment. Ryan felt a knot form in his stomach. He didn't know the couple, but their humiliation felt personal, like a bruise on the dignity they were trying so hard to preserve. Summoning his courage, Ryan pushed open the diner door, the small bell jingling overhead. The chatter in the diner hushed momentarily as the patrons turned to see who had entered. Jack's gaze shifted to Ryan, his irritation barely concealed. "This doesn't concern you, kid," Jack said dismissively. "Go on now." But Ryan didn't move. Instead, he stepped forward, his voice steady despite the butterflies in his stomach. "It's not right to treat people this way," he said, his tone calm but firm. "They're not trying to cheat you. It's clear they've lost their money." Jack's eyebrows shot up, and a few patrons exchanged curious glances. "And who are you?" "Their lawyer." Jack shot back, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Ryan ignored the remark and turned to the Andersons. "How much is the bill?" he asked. "It's $25, Jack interjected before they could answer. He leaned against the counter, his arms crossed as he watched Ryan with an air of amused skepticism. Ryan reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. Inside was the $30 he had saved over the past month, money he had intended to use to buy a birthday gift for his best friend Lily. His heart sank as he realized what he was about to do, but he didn't hesitate. He counted out $25 and handed it to Jack. "There, their bill is paid," Ryan said, his voice unwavering. The Andersons stared at Ryan, their expressions a mix of disbelief and gratitude. Mrs. Anderson took a step forward, her eyes brimming with tears. "You didn't have to do that, dear," she said, her voice trembling. "We would have found the money." Ryan smiled gently. "It's okay. Everyone needs help sometimes. Jack took the money without a word, his scowl softening ever so slightly. The tension in the room dissipated as Ryan turned back to the Andersons. "Come on," he said, motioning toward the door. "Let's get you out of here." Outside, the Andersons stopped to thank Ryan properly. Mrs. Anderson reached for his hand, her touch warm and sincere. "You're a remarkable young man," she said. "The world could use more people like you." Mr. Anderson nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "We won't forget this, son. You've shown us kindness we didn't expect." Ryan nodded, a small but genuine smile on his face. "Take care of yourselves," he said before turning to leave. As he walked away, the reality of what he had done began to sink in. The $25 he had just spent was meant for Lily's birthday gift, a carefully chosen item he knew she'd been hoping for. Now, he would have to show up to her party empty-handed, a thought that filled him with a mixture of dread and sadness. But as he glanced back at the Andersons, who were now walking hand in hand down the street, their shoulders lighter than before, Ryan felt a sense of peace. He had made a choice, one that had cost him personally, but had given dignity and hope to two strangers in need. It was a sacrifice he would willingly make again. The day of Lily's birthday party dawned bright and sunny, but Ryan couldn't shake the heavy feeling in his chest. He had spent the previous night debating whether he should even go to the party, knowing he would have to face Lily empty-handed. In the end, he decided that showing up was the right thing to do, even if it meant explaining his decision and risking her disappointment. By the time Ryan arrived at Lily's house, the celebration was in full swing. Her family's front yard was decorated with colorful balloons and streamers, and the sounds of laughter and music filled the air. Children were running around with party hats, and a long table in the backyard was piled high with presents wrapped in vibrant paper. Ryan adjusted the strap of his backpack, the emptiness inside it a reminder of what he lacked. He swallowed hard and walked through the gate, trying to steady his nerves. Spotting Lily near the cake table, he made his way over, his heart pounding. Lily looked radiant in a pale yellow dress, her eyes lighting up as she greeted guests. When she saw Ryan, her face brightened briefly, but the moment she noticed his empty hands, her smile faltered. "Ryan, you made it!" Lily exclaimed, though her tone carried a hint of hesitation. Her eyes darted to his hands and then back to his face. "Where's my present?" she asked with a playful grin, clearly expecting him to pull out a surprise. Ryan's stomach twisted. "Lily," he began, his voice soft. I need to talk to you. Can we step aside for a moment?" Lily's smile faded as she followed him to a quieter corner of the yard, away from the other guests. The noise of the party seemed to dim as Ryan gathered his thoughts. "What's going on, Ryan?" she asked, her brow furrowing with concern. Ryan took a deep breath, his words carefully measured. "Lily, I wanted to get you something special for your birthday. I really did. But yesterday I came across this elderly couple who were in a tough spot. They couldn't pay their bill at the diner and, well, I used my savings to help them out." Lily stared at him, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. "You spent the money you saved for my gift on strangers?" she asked, her voice tinged with incredulity. Ryan nodded, his gaze steady despite the ache in his chest. "They were being treated badly, and I couldn't just stand by. I know it wasn't what we planned, but it felt like the right thing to do." Lily's eyes narrowed, and her arms crossed over her chest. "Ryan, today was supposed to be special, for me. You knew how much I was looking forward to this. How could you just decide that helping strangers was more important than our friendship?" Her words hit him like a punch to the gut. Ryan had anticipated disappointment, but the bitterness in her tone caught him off guard. "Lily, it wasn't about choosing them over you," he tried to explain. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought I was doing something good." Lily shook her head, her voice growing louder. "Good for them, maybe. But what about me? Do you even realize how embarrassing it is to have my best friend show up with nothing? Everyone else brought something, Ryan." Ryan felt his cheeks burn as he glanced at the table of gifts. His voice dropped to a whisper. "I'm sorry, Lily. I really am. I didn't mean for it to end up like this." But Lily wasn't ready to forgive. Her tone turned cold, and she took a step back. "Ryan, I can't do this anymore. I need friends who understand what's important to me, who don't make choices that leave me feeling like I don't matter." Ryan's heart sank. "Are you saying you don't want to be friends anymore?" She hesitated, the anger in her expression giving way to a flicker of sadness. "I think it's for the best," she said finally, her voice quiet but firm. "I'm sorry, Ryan. I just can't." Before he could respond, Lily turned and walked back toward the party, leaving Ryan standing alone. He watched her go, her figure blending into the cheerful chaos of the celebration. The laughter and music felt distant now, the once bright atmosphere dimmed by the weight of her words. Ryan took a deep breath, trying to steady the emotions swirling inside him. His chest felt heavy, his eyes stung, but beneath the sadness was a quiet resolve. Despite the pain of losing his best friend, he couldn't bring himself to regret what he had done. The memory of the Andersons' grateful faces reminded him that some choices, no matter how costly, were worth making. As he turned to leave the party, Ryan walked slowly back down the path, his heart heavy, but his conscience clear. He had learned a painful lesson about the complexity of doing what felt right, even when it meant facing the consequences. In his mind, he whispered a silent wish for Lily, hoping that one day she would understand his choice, just as he was beginning to understand it himself. The days after Lily ended their friendship were some of the loneliest Ryan had ever experienced. He wandered the city streets after school, trying to clear his mind and make sense of everything that had happened. His heart was heavy, but he clung to the belief that his decision to help the Andersons had been the right one. One afternoon, while walking through the park, Ryan noticed a familiar pair. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson were seated on a bench near the lake, their weathered hands sorting through a small pile of recyclable bottles and cans. A pang of guilt and concern shot through Ryan. He hadn't seen them since the day at the diner, and had assumed they had managed to get back on their feet. Curiosity and worry pushed him forward. "Mr. and Mrs. Anderson?" Ryan called out as he approached. The elderly couple looked up, their tired faces lighting up with recognition. "Ryan, dear boy," Mrs. Anderson exclaimed, her voice filled with warmth. "What a pleasant surprise to see you again." Ryan smiled, though his heart ached at the sight of them rummaging through recyclables. "I didn't expect to see you here," he said, gesturing to the pile beside them. "Are you doing okay?" Mr. Anderson chuckled, his tone surprisingly light. "Oh, don't mind us, son. Just keeping busy, you know." But Ryan could see through the forced cheer. Their clothes were clean but worn, their postures weary. He hesitated before asking, "Do you need help? I mean, is there anything I can do?" Mrs. Anderson placed a gentle hand on his arm. "You've already done more for us than we could ever repay, Ryan. What you did at the diner, it meant the world to us." "It was nothing, really," Ryan replied quickly, his cheeks flushing. "I just couldn't stand by and do nothing." The couple exchanged a look, their shared glance speaking volumes. "That kind of heart, Ryan, is rare," Mr. Anderson said, his voice tinged with emotion. "We've seen enough of the world to know how rare it is." The three of them sat on the bench, and for the next hour, the Andersons shared their story. They had once owned a small business, but a series of misfortunes, illness, rising costs, and a dishonest partner had left them struggling to make ends meet. Despite their hardships, they had chosen to live modestly, valuing kindness and connection over material wealth. Ryan listened intently, his heart swelling with both empathy and admiration. "You've been through so much," he said, his voice soft. "But you're still so hopeful. How do you manage that?" Mrs. Anderson smiled, her eyes glistening. "Life has taught us that no matter how tough things get, there's always something to be grateful for. And people like you remind us that kindness still exists." Their words struck a chord deep within Ryan, reaffirming his belief that he had made the right choice, even at great personal cost. The Andersons' resilience and gratitude gave him a sense of peace he hadn't felt in days. As they continued to talk, Mr. Anderson suddenly grew quiet, his expression thoughtful. "Ryan," he said after a moment, "there's something we've been meaning to tell you." Mrs. Anderson nodded, her smile widening. "Yes, dear. We think it's time you knew the truth." Ryan tilted his head, puzzled. "The truth?" Mr. Anderson leaned forward, resting his hands on his knees. "The truth is, we're not as destitute as we may appear." Ryan blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" Mrs. Anderson took over. "We have enough to live on, Ryan. In fact, we're quite comfortable. We choose to live simply because it allows us to see the world differently, to understand the struggles of others, and to connect with people who genuinely care." Ryan stared at them, stunned. "So, at the diner, when I—" "You revealed your heart, Ryan," Mr. Anderson said with a warm smile. "That's why we didn't stop you. We wanted to see if you would act out of compassion, and you did. You passed a test you didn't even know you were taking." Ryan sat back, trying to process their revelation. A part of him felt relieved that the Andersons weren't as vulnerable as he'd thought, but another part of him was bewildered. Why live this way? Why test people like that? Mrs. Anderson's expression softened. "Because, dear, the world needs more people like you. People who do the right thing, not for recognition or reward, but simply because it's the right thing to do." Ryan felt a lump form in his throat. "I don't know what to say," he admitted. "Say nothing," Mr. Anderson replied with a chuckle. "Just keep being who you are. That's all the thanks we need." The sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow over the park. As Ryan helped the Andersons gather their recyclables, he realized that meeting them had given him a perspective he wouldn't trade for anything. Their resilience, humility, and wisdom were a reminder that life's true value wasn't in what you owned, but in how you treated others. Before parting ways, Mrs. Anderson gave Ryan a tight hug. "You're a special young man, Ryan. Don't ever forget that." As he walked home that evening, Ryan felt a strange mix of emotions: gratitude, inspiration, and a sense of purpose he hadn't felt before. The pain of losing Lily still lingered, but the bond he had formed with the Andersons reminded him that every choice, no matter how difficult, could lead to something meaningful. That night, as Ryan lay in bed staring at the ceiling, he whispered a quiet promise to himself: to keep acting with kindness and to carry the lessons he had learned forward. Life might not always reward such choices immediately, but he now knew their value was immeasurable. A week after their heartfelt encounter in the park, Ryan was surprised to receive a call from Mrs. Anderson. Her warm voice, though filled with a certain excitement, was measured and calm. "Ryan, dear," she began, "Henry and I would like to invite you to dinner at our home. We have something important to discuss with you." Ryan hesitated, glancing at the homework spread out on his desk. "Of course, Mrs. Anderson. I'd be honored." "Wonderful. We'll see you tomorrow evening. Don't worry about anything. Just bring yourself." The next day, Ryan found himself standing outside the Andersons' modest but well-kept home. He was struck by its warmth. Potted plants lined the porch, and soft light spilled from the windows. Taking a deep breath, he knocked. Mrs. Anderson answered with a smile. "Ryan, come in, dear." Inside, the house was cozy and welcoming. The aroma of a home-cooked meal wafted through the air. Mr. Anderson greeted Ryan with a firm handshake and a cheerful grin. "Glad you could join us, son." As they settled at the dining table, Ryan couldn't help but feel a sense of belonging. The conversation flowed easily, from school to his aspirations, to stories about the Andersons' past adventures. Yet, as the plates were cleared, a shift in tone signaled the real reason for the evening. "Ryan," Mr. Anderson began, leaning forward slightly, "there's something we'd like to share with you." Mrs. Anderson nodded, her expression kind but serious. "You've impressed us deeply, Ryan, not just with your act of kindness at the diner, but with the way you carry yourself. Your humility, your compassion. It's rare." Ryan's cheeks flushed. "I was just doing what felt right." "And that's exactly why we believe in you," Mr. Anderson said firmly. "Which brings us to why you're here tonight." The couple exchanged a glance before Mrs. Anderson continued. Henry and I oversee a philanthropic foundation focused on providing education, resources, and opportunities to underprivileged communities. It's been our life's work. Ryan's eyes widened. He had no idea the Andersons were involved in something so significant. We've been looking for someone to mentor, Mr. Anderson added. Someone with heart and a vision for making a difference. And we think that person might be you. Ryan's jaw dropped. Me? Yes, you, Mrs. Anderson said with a soft laugh. You have the qualities we value most: integrity, compassion, and determination. We'd like to offer you a chance to work with us, to learn about the foundation, help us with our projects, and grow into a leader. Ryan's mind reeled. He was just a kid. What could he possibly bring to such an important organization? I don't know what to say. Say you'll consider it, Mr. Anderson said, his tone gentle but encouraging. We know this is a lot to take in, but we see so much potential in you, Ryan. This isn't just about the foundation. It's about giving you a chance to grow and make a bigger impact. Tears welled up in Ryan's eyes as the weight of their words settled over him. He thought about his mother, about the struggles they'd faced together. He thought about the kindness the Andersons had shown him and the chance to be part of something that truly mattered. I don't know if I'm ready, Ryan admitted, his voice shaky, but I'd be honored to try. Mrs. Anderson reached across the table, taking his hand in hers. That's all we ask, dear. The rest we'll figure out together. Over the next few hours, the Andersons shared stories of their foundation's work, scholarship programs, community centers, and partnerships with other organizations. They spoke of lives transformed, families supported, and the joy of giving back. With each story, Ryan's excitement grew. As the evening wound down, Mr. Anderson handed Ryan a folder filled with information about the foundation. Take your time reading through this, he said. We'll start slowly, maybe a few hours a week after school. But we believe you'll find your rhythm. Ryan clutched the folder to his chest, overwhelmed with gratitude. Thank you, he said earnestly, for everything. I won't let you down. Mrs. Anderson smiled warmly. We know you won't, Ryan. Just be yourself. That's all the world needs from you. Walking home that night, Ryan felt a renewed sense of purpose. The opportunity to work with the Andersons wasn't just a chance to give back. It was a chance to grow, to learn, and to become the kind of person he aspired to be. For the first time since Lily's birthday, Ryan felt a flicker of hope. Maybe everything that had happened, the sacrifice, the heartbreak, had led him to this moment. As he looked up at the stars scattered across the night sky, he whispered a quiet promise to himself, to make the most of this opportunity and to honor the trust the Andersons had placed in him. Ryan's journey with the Andersons Foundation began with curiosity and a desire to prove himself. On his first day at their office, a modest but vibrant space filled with photos of community projects and success stories, Ryan felt both excitement and trepidation. Welcome, Ryan, Mrs. Anderson greeted warmly, showing him around. This is where the magic happens. The Foundation's team was small but passionate, and they quickly embraced Ryan as one of their own. From brainstorming ideas for after-school programs to organizing donation drives, Ryan found himself immersed in a world he had only glimpsed before. Ryan's role started small, taking notes in meetings, assisting with event planning, but it didn't take long for his fresh perspective to shine. One afternoon, during a discussion about improving participation in a literacy initiative, Ryan hesitated before raising his hand. What if we partnered with local sports teams to attract more kids, he suggested. We could host reading events with players. It might make reading feel more fun and less like homework. The room fell silent for a moment. Then Mr. Anderson clapped his hands. Brilliant. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need. Let's explore it. Ryan's idea turned into a successful event, with local athletes reading to children at libraries and community centers. Seeing the kids light up as they met their sports heroes and picked up books for the first time filled Ryan with pride. It was the first of many contributions that earned him the respect of his colleagues. Yet, as fulfilling as his work at the foundation was, Ryan couldn't ignore the struggles at home. His mother, already working long hours, often came home exhausted. Bills piled up, and Ryan felt the weight of their financial situation pressing down on him. One evening after finishing homework, Ryan found his mother staring at an overdue electricity bill. "We'll figure it out, Mom," he said, trying to sound optimistic. His mother smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You're already doing so much, Ryan. I just don't want you to take on more than you can handle." But balancing school, the foundation, and their financial challenges wasn't easy. Ryan often stayed up late, juggling his responsibilities and worrying about how to help his mother. The pressure began to take its toll, and for the first time, doubt crept into his mind. One afternoon, sensing Ryan's exhaustion, Mrs. Anderson pulled him aside. "Ryan, you've been doing incredible work," she said, her tone gentle, "but you're carrying too much on your own. Let us help." Ryan hesitated. "I don't want to burden you. You've already done so much for me." "Nonsense," Mrs. Anderson replied firmly. "You're part of our family now. Helping you is our privilege." With the Andersons' guidance, Ryan and his mother found a lifeline. The foundation's network helped secure a job for Ryan's mother that offered better pay and reasonable hours. With their finances stabilizing, Ryan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. "Mom, this is our chance to start fresh," Ryan said one evening, as they sat together over dinner. His mother nodded, her eyes brimming with gratitude. "We'll make it work, Ryan. Together." With his home life improving, Ryan threw himself into his work at the foundation with renewed energy. He discovered a deep passion for community work, inspired by the lives he helped change and the lessons he learned from the Andersons. During a meeting about expanding the foundation's reach, Ryan proposed an ambitious idea: creating a mentorship program for teens like him. "I've seen how much mentorship can change a life," he said. "We can match kids with role models who understand their struggles and can guide them." The Andersons immediately supported the idea, and within weeks, the program launched. Ryan worked tirelessly, recruiting volunteers, meeting with teens, and ensuring every detail was perfect. Seeing the first group of young mentees bonding with their mentors was a moment he would never forget. Through these challenges and triumphs, Ryan grew not only as a contributor to the foundation, but also as a person. He learned to balance his commitments, to ask for help when he needed it, and to appreciate the power of a supportive community. As Ryan reflected on how far he had come, he felt a profound sense of purpose. The struggles he faced at home, the sacrifices he made, and the kindness he received had all shaped him into someone who could make a real difference. "You've grown so much, Ryan," Mrs. Anderson said one afternoon, watching him lead a meeting with the confidence of someone twice his age. "We're so proud of you." Ryan smiled. "I couldn't have done it without you and Mr. Anderson. You gave me a chance when I didn't even know I needed one." With their encouragement, Ryan looked ahead to the challenges and opportunities yet to come, ready to tackle them with the same resilience and determination that had brought him this far. The Anderson Foundation's offices hummed with activity on a crisp autumn morning. Ryan sat at his desk, finalizing details for the Foundation's mentorship program expansion. His journey over the past months had been transformative, and every success strengthened his resolve to continue making a difference. That day, however, brought an unexpected twist. As Ryan reviewed grant applications, he noticed a name that made his chest tighten: Jack Benson. The same Jack who had berated the Andersons months ago at his diner. The same Jack whose condescension and harshness had left a lasting impression on Ryan. Ryan frowned as he skimmed the application. Jack's diner, once a bustling neighborhood staple, was now struggling. Mounting debt and declining customers had left him desperate for assistance. Jack was seeking financial support from the Anderson Foundation to keep his business afloat. Later that afternoon, Jack arrived at the Foundation's office for his scheduled meeting. He looked older, more worn, with deep lines etched into his face. Gone was the overbearing confidence Ryan remembered. In its place was a man weighed down by worry and regret. "Mr. Benson, thank you for coming in," Ryan said, maintaining a professional demeanor as he extended his hand. Jack hesitated, his face flickering with recognition. "You're Ryan, aren't you?" Jack's voice faltered. "You were at my diner." Ryan nodded. I was. An uncomfortable silence settled between them. Jack shifted in his seat, clearly uneasy. I didn't realize you worked here, he said, his voice tinged with embarrassment. I didn't exactly make a good impression back then. No, you didn't, Ryan replied evenly, meeting Jack's gaze. But that's not why we're here today. Let's discuss your situation. Jack explained the challenges he was facing. Rising costs, a shrinking customer base, and his inability to adapt to changing trends. As he spoke, Ryan noticed something different about him. The arrogance that once defined Jack was absent. In its place was humility, and perhaps a glimmer of remorse. When Jack finished, Ryan leaned forward. Mr. Benson, I'll be honest. Your past behavior, especially towards the Andersons, doesn't align with the values we uphold here. Jack's face fell. I know, he said quietly. I've made mistakes. I regret the way I treated them, and others. I let my pride get in the way. I'm trying to do better now, but I need help. Ryan's mind raced. He had every reason to turn Jack away, to let him face the consequences of his actions. But as Ryan thought about the Andersons, how they had given him a second chance despite his inexperience, he felt a pang of conscience. Couldn't Jack deserve the same opportunity to grow? Mr. Benson, Ryan began, at this foundation, we believe in second chances. However, our support isn't just about finances. It's about accountability and change. If we agree to help you, there will be conditions. Jack nodded eagerly. I understand. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Good, Ryan said, his tone firm. First, you'll attend our business development workshops to learn how to manage your diner effectively in today's market. Second, you'll commit to giving back to the community, volunteering, mentoring others, or hosting events at your diner. Jack hesitated, but then nodded, determination flickering in his eyes. I'll do it. Ryan extended his hand. Then we'll help you get back on your feet. Over the following weeks, Jack immersed himself in the Foundation's programs. He attended every workshop, taking copious notes and asking thoughtful questions. Ryan, though initially skeptical, began to notice genuine effort in Jack's demeanor. At one workshop, focused on customer service, Jack approached Ryan during a break. I didn't realize how much I needed to learn, Jack admitted. I always thought running a business was about being tough, but I see now it's about understanding people. Ryan nodded. It's never too late to learn. The key is to keep growing. Inspired by his time with the Foundation, Jack began implementing changes at his diner. He revamped the menu, introduced specials that catered to local tastes, and started hosting community events, like family nights and free meals for the elderly. Slowly but surely, the diner began to regain its reputation. One evening, Ryan decided to visit the diner. The once dim space now felt warm and inviting, with cheerful music playing and families enjoying hearty meals. Jack greeted Ryan at the door, a smile spreading across his face. Ryan, welcome, Jack said, extending his hand. It's good to see you. Ryan shook his hand, glancing around the bustling room. This is incredible, Jack. You've really turned things around. Jack's expression softened. Thanks to you and the Foundation. I don't know where I'd be without your help. As Ryan sat down to enjoy a meal, he watched Jack move through the diner, chatting with customers and ensuring everyone felt welcome. It was a far cry from the man who had once dismissed the Andersons so callously. At the end of the evening, Jack approached Ryan's table. I want to thank you, Jack said, his voice filled with emotion. Not just for giving me a second chance, but for believing I could change. You didn't have to, but you did. That means everything to me. Ryan smiled. You've earned it, Jack. Change isn't easy, but you've proven it's possible. As Ryan left the diner that night, he felt a sense of fulfillment. He had faced a difficult decision and chosen to believe in the power of redemption. Watching Jack's transformation reminded him why he had joined the Foundation in the first place, to create opportunities for growth, even for those who seemed least deserving. And as he walked home under the city lights, Ryan knew he had learned as much from Jack as Jack had learned from him. Compassion, after all, was the cornerstone of everything he stood for. Ryan Carter stood on the rooftop terrace of the Anderson Foundation headquarters, overlooking the sprawling city below. The glow of streetlights mirrored the glimmer of determination in his eyes. Months had passed since he began his journey with the foundation, and under the guidance of Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, he had transformed from a compassionate teenager to a poised leader with a vision. As he sipped his coffee, his mind raced with ideas. The Andersons had always emphasized that their work was about more than charity. It was about empowering people to break the cycles of poverty and inequality. Inspired by their philosophy, Ryan had begun crafting programs that not only helped people survive, but gave them the tools to thrive. In a boardroom meeting later that week, Ryan presented his ambitious new initiatives to the foundation's leadership team. The first was an education program designed to provide scholarships, mentorship, and after-school support to students from underprivileged families. Named the Rising Stars Initiative, it aimed to empower young people who had the potential but lacked the resources to achieve their dreams. "We can't just hand out scholarships and hope for the best," Ryan explained to the team. "We need to create a support system, tutors, mental health counselors, and mentors who will guide these students through their journey." The second initiative was a housing program focused on renovating abandoned buildings into affordable housing units for families in need. "The Homeward Bound project will provide not just shelter, but stability," Ryan continued. "A safe, clean home is the foundation for a better life." The leadership team, including the Andersons, listened intently. When Ryan finished, Mrs. Anderson was the first to speak. "Ryan, your vision is bold, but it's also grounded in compassion and practicality. It's exactly what this foundation stands for." Mr. Anderson nodded. "Let's make it happen." With their approval, Ryan wasted no time in assembling teams to implement these programs. He worked tirelessly, coordinating with architects for the housing project, meeting with local educators for the scholarship program, and reaching out to community leaders for support. His energy was contagious, inspiring those around him to give their best. As the initiatives gained momentum, Ryan found himself navigating new challenges. Balancing compassion with the need for efficiency wasn't always easy. One afternoon, during a meeting with contractors for the housing project, he faced a difficult decision. The contractors had recommended cutting costs by using cheaper materials, but Ryan knew it would compromise the quality of the homes. "Look," Ryan said, leaning forward at the table. "These families deserve better than a quick fix. If we want to build something lasting, we need to do it right. Let's revisit the budget and find another way to make it work." His firmness surprised the contractors, but they respected his conviction. Moments like these taught Ryan the importance of standing by his principles, even when it meant making hard choices. At the same time, Ryan faced challenges in his personal life. His mother, Isabella, who had been his unwavering support, often reminded him to take care of himself amid his hectic schedule. "Ryan, you're doing amazing things," she said one evening as they shared dinner. "But remember, you can't pour from an empty cup. Take some time for yourself." Ryan smiled at her concern. "I know, Mom. I promise I'll find time to breathe." Despite the long hours, Ryan thrived. His natural ability to connect with people, combined with his growing professionalism, earned him respect both within the foundation and in the community. He was no longer just a teenager with a good heart. He was a leader who turned ideas into action. Months later, Ryan stood in the gymnasium of a local high school, addressing the first group of Rising Stars scholarship recipients. The room buzzed with excitement as students and their families gathered for the launch event. "You all are here because someone believes in you," Ryan said, his voice steady and warm. "And we're not just talking about academic success. We believe in your ability to change your communities, to inspire others, and to build a better future. This is your chance to rise, and we're here to support you every step of the way." The students erupted in applause, and Ryan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He knew that behind every clap was a story of struggle, perseverance, and hope. As he looked into the crowd, he spotted a young girl, no older than 10, clinging to her mother's hand with a shy smile. The sight reminded him of his own journey and the sacrifices his mother had made for him. Meanwhile, the Homeward Bound project also bore fruit. The first renovated building, a once-abandoned factory, now housed 10 families. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Ryan handed a set of keys to a young couple with 2 children. The mother, tears streaming down her face, hugged Ryan tightly. "This means everything to us," she whispered. "Thank you for giving us a place to call home." That night, as Ryan sat in his office reviewing reports, Mrs. Anderson stopped by. "You've done incredible work, Ryan," she said, her voice filled with pride. "Do you realize the ripple effect you've created? These programs will impact generations." Ryan smiled, humbled by her words. "I just hope I'm honoring everything you and Mr. Anderson have built." "You're not just honoring it," she replied. "You're expanding it in ways we never imagined." The success of the Foundation's initiatives attracted attention beyond the local community. Philanthropists and organizations reached out, eager to collaborate or learn from the Anderson Foundation's model. Ryan's leadership became a source of inspiration, and he was invited to speak at national conferences about the intersection of compassion and effective leadership. Through it all, Ryan remained grounded. He never forgot the moment that started it all, standing in the diner, paying a $25 bill for a couple he had never met. That single act of kindness had set him on a path that not only changed his life, but touched countless others. On the first anniversary of the Rising Stars Initiative, Ryan hosted a gala to celebrate the Foundation's achievements. As he addressed the audience, he reflected on the journey. This foundation was built on a simple idea. Kindness has the power to transform lives. It's a lesson I learned in the most unexpected way, and it's one I carry with me every day. The programs we've launched, the families we've supported, the students we've mentored, they're proof that compassion and action can create lasting change. The audience erupted in applause, and Ryan felt a swell of emotion. As the evening continued, he mingled with attendees, from scholarship recipients to community leaders. Everywhere he turned, he saw the impact of the Foundation's work. As the lights dimmed at the Anderson Foundation's annual gala, Ryan Carter stepped onto the stage for the closing speech. The room, filled with supporters, scholarship recipients, and families who had benefited from the Foundation's work, fell silent. Ryan looked out at the sea of faces, each one a reminder of the journey that had brought him here. For a moment, he stood in quiet reflection, allowing the memories to wash over him. The bustling diner where it all began, the trembling hands of Mr. and Mrs. Anderson as they searched for their lost money, the decision to give away his birthday savings without hesitation. All of it had set a chain reaction into motion that had changed lives, including his own. Ryan began to speak, his voice steady, but filled with emotion. "A little over a year ago, I made a simple choice to help 2 strangers in a moment of need. I had no idea that choice would lead me here, to this stage, surrounded by so many extraordinary people." He paused, letting his words sink in. That $25 didn't just cover a bill, it planted a seed. It taught me that even the smallest acts of kindness can grow into something far greater than we ever imagine. That moment opened doors I never knew existed, and taught me lessons I'll carry for a lifetime. He glanced at Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, seated in the front row, their eyes glistening with pride. The Andersons saw something in me I couldn't yet see in myself. They gave me an opportunity to grow, to lead, and to believe that no matter how small we feel in the face of the world's challenges, we have the power to make a difference. Ryan's words resonated deeply with the audience. Many nodded, others wiped away tears, and a few leaned closer to hear every word. He continued, "If there's one thing I've learned, it's that true wealth doesn't lie in how much money we have or how much success we achieve. It lies in the difference we make. It's in the lives we touch, the communities we uplift, and the kindness we choose to show, even when no one is watching." Ryan looked around the room, his gaze settling on a group of scholarship recipients. Resilience, humility, compassion. These are the lessons that matter. They're the qualities that bring us together and remind us that we're stronger when we lift each other up. The room was silent, the kind of silence that speaks louder than applause. Every word carried weight. Every pause gave room for reflection. Ryan's message was clear. The power to create change lies within everyone. As he reached the end of his speech, Ryan's tone shifted, becoming more hopeful and inviting. Tonight isn't just a celebration of what we've achieved, it's a call to action. Imagine a world where acts of kindness like the one I stumbled upon weren't the exception, but the rule. A world where we all strive to make a difference, big or small. He gestured toward the audience. Each of you here tonight is already part of this movement. And for those watching at home, I want to invite you to join us. Let's create a world where kindness grows, where generosity and love are the foundations of our communities. If you found this story inspiring, hit the subscribe button for more heartwarming stories that celebrate resilience and kindness. Let's spread the message together.